Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the November 19th meeting of the Zoning Subcommittee of the Revere City Council. This evening we have committee members, Councilors Pat Zambuto, Correggio, and Guanasso. Councilor Hass is here, as well as Council President Penta. We have several items on the agenda. I am going to take them out of order in that we have, I think, 7 very similar applicants seeking permission from the Revere City Council to modify existing telecommunications sites for various purposes. What I'm going to do first is ask if there is anybody here who has anything specific to say about any single antenna. Just identify yourself so we can move this along a little bit more smoothly. And I see no one raising their hand, so I am going to ask if anybody here tonight has anything to say in general about the modifications of the various premises on the agenda this evening for telecommunications purposes. And I see no one raising their hand as well. So therefore, I am going to ask now that the representative of Metro PCS please approach the microphone, state your name and your address, and then I will identify each of these items on the agenda, and you can discuss them as you feel necessary with the various members of the subcommittee as well as the other members of the City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Councilor. City Council, my name is Brian Wilson, 47 Yale Street in Winchester, Massachusetts, representing Metro PCS Massachusetts LLC. As you mentioned, these are existing wireless telecommunication facilities that we hope to modify through an expansion of our backhaul network. And briefly, as this applies to all of the sites, we are trying to enhance and speed up communications for our customers in the city of Revere and those traveling through Revere by adding a point-to-point network of small dish antennas that will allow us to provide faster data throughput rates for the members. The reason for the different numbers and sizes of antennas at the different properties is based on what we're trying to connect and how far away they are. The farther away a site is, we're trying to connect to, the larger the dish. So the largest dish that we're asking to install in any property is about 2 feet in diameter, which is about the same size as a Dish Network satellite dish. The smallest that we're asking to deploy is an 8-inch dish. So these are what we would consider a minimal expansion of the site, and we request your permission to expand these sites to better serve the residents of the city of Revere.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I'm just going to identify the locations where you're asking to modify these and their designation on our calendar. C-12-12 is a request for modification at 1070 Broadway in Revere, Massachusetts for 2 additional 1-foot dishes. At C-12-13 at 50 Walnut Avenue for 4 additional 1-foot dishes. C-12-14 at 250 Revere Street, Revere for 1 additional antenna. I'm not sure what size that would be. C-12-15 for 1 additional and 1-foot dish antenna at 400 Broadway, Revere. C-12-16 for 1 additional 1-foot dish at 474 Revere Beach Boulevard in Revere. C-12-17 requests modification of installing 3 additional 1-foot dishes at 427 Squire Road in Revere. And C-12-18 installing 1 additional 1-foot dish at lot 1-8 at 204 Proctor Avenue in Revere, Massachusetts. If you have no other, nothing else to advise us as to the technical nature or anything of interest, then I'll ask the councilors to, if they have any questions of you.
Certainly. If I could just clarify, at 250 Revere Street, which is St. Anthony's Church, we're proposing the addition of 1 8-inch antenna. It's going to be behind a plexiglass window that's already installed. It will not be visible from the exterior at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Chairman Reardon. Just one basic question. The placement of the antennas, in general, where would be the placement of the antennas? On the side of the building, on the roof?
Generally, it's going to be in the same location as our panel antennas. So right now, we have existing antennas on all of these facilities, and we're trying to locate the dish antennas in the same location as the panel antennas.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Ganasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In talking with many people who are subscribers to PCS, you seem to have the best contact information. They have, when they turn on their phones and speak to one another, they have terrific contact, and unlike Sprint that I have, I get blocked out. So, but then I started to think, you have more locations than anybody that has ever come before the City Council. PCS is the last guy in the game, and they've gotten more sites than all the rest of them put together. And so that's a credit to your marketing ability and the providership you're doing for your consumer and your subscribers. So good luck to you. And
On behalf of Metro
securing
PCS,
these,
thank you very much for the accolade.
yeah, well, it's due you, because you certainly have leaped around everybody else, and you give a affordable tool to the consumer, so that's also helpful too. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Ganasso. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification for my constituents in Ward 6, 427 Squire Road, that's a Sheridan 4-point, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. Councilor Novoselsky.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Just one question on 50 Walnut Ave. Are those additional or replacements?
These are additional.
Do they have any more room up there?
They do, in fact, and as with all of our proposed additions, the antennas are going to be painted to match, close mounted to the buildings, so these will be a minimal visible change to the building. Nobody going by will notice them.
What do you use for power source?
These only require a lead of coaxial cable to connect the microwave antenna back to our existing radio. So we're not making any change to the radio facilities that are on these sites. It's just the addition of this dish antenna for point-to-point communication. So instead of communicating through our competitor's network, the Verizon landline, we can communicate point-to-point directly between our sites.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. I'd like to point out to those who are in the television audience or anybody of interest that the applicant has made a significant a submission of documents, including photographs and plans. If anybody is interested in seeing exactly where these things are planning to be, or they're planning to put these things, I suggest you go to the city clerk's office and see it. But I would say that my view of these are that while no one would consider them to be classical art, they certainly have become necessary for our modes of communication, and you don't have them. You don't have the convenience of cell phones without, and the choices that Councilor Ganasso specifically alluded to, without allowing these minor modifications due to the changes, I'm sure, in technology, which are constantly occurring, and all in favor of more facile communication. At this point, I'd entertain a motion to report this out. All 7 of these out favorably.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor Zambuto. All in favor? The zoning subcommittee will be voting, informing the city council as a whole that all 7 of these requests have been reported out favorably at the city council meeting, which will occur at 6 p.m. this evening. I don't think it's necessary for you to stay. You're welcome to if you would like to.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. The next 2 items on the agenda, or actually the first 2 that we took out of, we are taking now out of order, a petition for a special permit and a request for a Chapter 148 license from James St. V for a special permit to further alter an existing non-conforming structure and use for the purpose of operating a special garage and auto body shop at 851 to 855 Broadway, Revere, Mass., which is where the 148 license under 12-210 would be located as well. So we would ask the proponent, or the petitioner's representative, to please approach the podium and identify yourself, and please, if you feel necessary, make a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Attorney Lawrence Simeone, and I represent Mr. Stivell of Majestic Motors. Majestic Motors is currently doing business at 14 Furlong Drive, where they've operated a special garage for the last 6 years. Mr. Stivell is a Saugus native whose address is on the application. The special permit that they've sought is in accordance with 1740-030, essentially modifying a non-conforming use from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use, prior use being a bus company, which has been identified by the Site Plan Review Committee as a commercial garage. The property consists of 2 lots. It's Lot 1 and 2, 851 and 855 Broadway. Has approximately 8,484 square feet located in the general business district. The individual applicant this evening seeks to lease the premises with an option to buy from the longtime owner, the Anzoni family, and they used to run Service Bus Line. The option would allow my client to get in there, begin to operate, make these modifications to the building, and then at some point actually take over full control of the building and ownership. We had a neighborhood meeting on November 16, 2012, where I had the opportunity to go over the project with the neighbors. It was well attended, and I think they offered some unique criticism to the area businesses as well as the application. As to the application itself, and I'll basically go over it briefly, this has not been shown to the council before because I was not representing this individual at public hearing, but and he didn't have these drawings. But what we're proposing is to do a complete exterior renovation of the existing building. The building is tired, to say the least. The proposal also will be to take that particular building and reconform the interior of the building, and this is probably the most important part, to try to keep all of the business within the confines of the business. Historically, auto body garages in this community, if they're next to a residence, have always been very difficult to permit. Understandably, because years ago this particular use was somewhat difficult, both in dealing with the client and also dealing with the neighborhood issues. But this industry has changed. New spray booths have now come in. They're very compact. They offer no noise. They offer no odor. They pretty much have changed the whole industry. In this particular area, we've got a design, a floor layout for you, with the spray booth being located in the far corner, and then 3 additional work areas for the approximately 10 to 12 cars that will be worked on a week at this particular location. There will be existing 3 off-street parking spaces, 2 in the front, 1 in the rear. Those off-street parking spaces will be dedicated to staff parking needs. There will be approximately 5 to 6 employees working at this location. There will be no parking on Folsom Street, and we would accept that certainly as a condition. That particular issue, parking on Folsom Street and access and ingress from Folsom Street from the regular traffic of the day, is the critical issue that was complained about by most of the neighbors. Several neighbors were very candid and said if you could keep the business within the 4 corners of the building, you know, it has no effect on us, but clearly They were very concerned about parking and very concerned about traffic. Some of their the problems that they raised candidly have nothing to do with this site. They were very open about the fact that the business to the right of them, this site, has been a very bad neighbor, and the business across the street has been an even worse neighbor from a business point of view. And those two individuals have caused great consternation to this neighborhood, and now I think they're in a position that they were very good, it was a good meeting. I think they just can't come to feel that there's enough enforcement power in the city should this particular applicant not abide by the conditions. But I'm here to tell you that his record is 6 years here at 14 Furlong Street. He is an exemplary record. He runs a good shop, and I think he would be a good fit because, again, he is a small auto body garage, not a large one that we've seen over the years. When I look at the other issues, we have 8 to 5, Monday through Friday would be our proposed hours. Saturday would be for pickup and delivery only. One of the things that this honorable body has to do on a modification of a special permit, changing it from one use to the other use, is that the proposed new use has to be substantially more detrimental than the existing use that is there now. And based upon my discussions with the Anzoni family, they've had up to 11 buses at this location. And those 11 buses would be driven by 11 employees who ran those buses 9 to 5 every single day, probably except for Saturday and Sunday. So the impact of those 11 buses and the impact of that many, the need for off-street parking for employees is significantly different than the impact that this particular applicant is going to end up with. In fact, it can be probably proven, if a traffic consultant were to be hired, that in fact the new proposal will reduce traffic congestion in this area because you're not going to have any, you're not going to have 12 or 10 buses coming out of this facility every day at all hours of the day. Rather, you're going to have people come in, drop their cars off. We've allowed for 5 in-house spaces that would allow for people to drop their car off. Those cars would be fixed. The individual would come and go to pick those cars up. And again, Mr. Staville has indicated that he only operates and fixes about 10 to 12 cars a week. So there would be ample space to queue up that work. And then you have an additional 3 spaces here where the cars would be worked on. I know that these are difficult things. I've offered in a communication to the chairman an opportunity to grant an extension to the body, maybe to allow me to continue to discuss with the neighbors this particular project. But should the subcommittee not wish the grant of an additional 30 days, then I respectfully request the body vote to approve this project.
Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Guanasso.
Mr. Chairman, I applaud Attorney Simeoni. I asked of him to submit a letter to the abutters. He reached out and went to the assessor's office and got a listing of some 60 names, and also he had them mailed to all the immediate abutters. And we did have a very productive meeting the other night. And in addition to, I'm so proud that quite a few of the residents decided to come and to hear, but I'm proud of the fact also that 6 of my colleagues also joined me at that meeting. And I can't recall over the last several years a neighborhood meeting where they're in attendance at that neighborhood meeting were 7 councilors. So that in itself shows that there's a strong awareness not only for this Broadway location, but for the people in that immediate area, and I really appreciate that. I want my colleagues to know that. But the residents sent the message that night, and they sent it loud and clear. They are unanimously against anything going there. And it's based on several factors and what they live with on a day-to-day basis, Mr. Chairman. They have a garage across the street that completely inundates the neighborhood. And I know we can put strict enforcement on them. We can send the police down, but it's a constant day-to-day battle. It's the nature of what this business is. You have a car repaired, and true, as the attorney said, and they stated that night, there are 6 or 7 spots within the building itself, or 10 spots within the building itself, that they can queue cars and be working on them. But we all know, and everyone who has experienced anything with the automobile industry, and anyone who's had an automobile repaired, they know it doesn't get done in 1 week, doesn't get done sometimes in 2 weeks. It might be 3 weeks, and that's just for one car. Not to suggest the employees parking. The neighborhood is crumbling with activity. It just has too much. I can envision 6 garages in that immediate area. So the first thought would be, in a special permit would be, is there a need? There certainly isn't any need. There's 7 other businesses located in the immediate area that does similar activity as this gentleman's proposing. And that's no bad reflection on him, Mr. Chairman. It's certainly testimony to the fact that the area is really overrun with this type of activity. It's for the Anzoni family being good neighbors, and it was said to the person there that night that they were good neighbors over the past several years that they had that property. And, and the people had a great word of expression to them. But this is a different business. This is the type of business that certainly creates all kinds of havoc in a community. And it just bears mentioning that the traffic impact on that particular area would be overwhelming. They can't experience any more pain than they're already suffering. They've asked us, and very kindly, and I applaud the residents in attendance, that the manner in which they conducted themselves. They certainly said it in no less terms. They don't want it. They want us to remember that they don't want it. And they've asked me to express this view to you, Mr. Chairman, and to anybody who is concerned that they are against it. So the only thing I could ask at this particular time is for all those in attendance that night and for those people who weren't in attendance, again, I wish that the wish of the people are represented and we vote this particular application down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Guzzo. I'm going to start with Councilor Correggio.
Thank you, Chairman Reardon. I agree with the Ward Councilor, Arthur Guanasso, Ward 3. I was at that meeting. It was overwhelming support out there for neighbors against it. I don't live too far around there. It's a very difficult area as far as traffic. There's a lot of congestion. There's a lot of blind areas when you come out from Folsom Street. You can't see coming out. So it's a safety factor. Safety is the most important thing for that area. There's already other body shops along Broadway. To me, we don't need another body shop. And so we're just trying to make the area safe, keep it clean, and maybe some other type of business might come in there. So I'd be opposed for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. Councilor Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was impressed with the turnout last week. Councilor Correggio, the Ward Council was there. Ward 6 Councilor Charlie Patch, Jessica Giannino, and Nancy Zambuto. I don't think we've had that many people turn out to a neighborhood meeting in years. But again, I don't think there was one person that spoke in favor of it. They did ask a lot of good questions. I mean, the key issues, I believe, will be parking, regardless of who goes there, especially a place like this where they're dealing with 5 cars at a time. You also have to look at the noise level, because before it was a garage, now the noise level, repairing cars, banging and everything else, okay, that'll be detrimental to people on Folsom Street, etc. I can't think of any reason we should consider it, especially where you had 100% of neighborhood people and that included the whole area. So I guess the issues will be noise coming from within, where they're repairing vehicles, parking in the general geographic area, and a multiple of other issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Hess. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, attended the meeting, and it was a great outpouring of a neighborhood really coming out to fight for what they believe is right. And I told them that night that I would support their decision to oppose this. But I also told them, and I want to say it again, is that sometimes in these projects, we throw the baby out with the bathwater. And my fear is that this applicant will go to court, and the court will not see it the way we see it. We see it as more detrimental to the neighborhood. But we all know our record as a city in court here. It's not very good. And my fear is that the court will see it as not more detrimental and award them this permit. So I'm going to ask my friend and the legal counsel here to please don't go to court with this, because my fear is that they will win. And maybe we can find a solution. And that's the one thing that we didn't have time, because there were so many people and everybody wanted to have their say, and it was wonderful, but we really didn't discuss what the neighborhood would accept there and would think would be a fitting proposal, because something's going to go there. It's a large parcel, whether it's an apartment building or whether it's something else, something's going to go there. So my biggest fear is that this ends up in court and we lose. The best case scenario is they find a better use for this building that the neighbors can live with. So that's my 2 cents. But I was impressed with. It was a professionally run meeting by the ward councilor. He called for this meeting. It was one of the best neighborhood meetings I've ever been to. It was run professionally. There was no animosity, although I was accused of threatening the neighbors with my scenario about going to court. It didn't hurt my feelings, because these are all my friends and neighbors, and I live right near them. And some of my closest friends, the Fernandez, are my closest people, my closest friends in life. So I'm certainly in support of the neighborhood. My biggest fear is it won't turn out the way we want it to. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to, the Councilor Granasso, or the ward councilor, ran a fine meeting the other night. It was like, for the audit councilor, Simeone, he walked into the Lions Den. It was, I never seen a meeting that was against 100%. But I understand why the neighbors down there are against it, because unfortunately they're getting punished, well, not punished, but they're getting hammered for the establishment across the street, which I had experience as a police officer going down there constantly with parking problems, and from several of my friends that live in that area, that he used to call me personally just to go down there. It was such a bad operation. And now the one across the street is even worse than that one. So they, rightfully so, the neighbors have a right to be concerned about what goes into this building. And I know with my experience over the years with auto body places, you know, they say there's enough parking, but there's always a car that's half finished that they stick out in the road, they forget about it for a while, they bring it back in, and I just foresee that in the future, and I don't want to put the neighbors through this problem again. I'm going to support the ward councilor and also the neighbors of the area. there's got to be a better use of this building and an auto body. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Patcha, and I'd like to welcome Councilor Powers to the chamber. Councilor Powers, do you have a comment to make about this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I did not attend the meeting. I really didn't need to. When I saw the proposal that was being made for that location, to me it was ludicrous. I've lived in that area myself. I know of the traffic concerns down there. I know of the congestion on all of those streets down there. I could never, in good conscience, support a proposal in that area for an auto body shop as long as I sat on this council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Penta. Council
Thank you,
President
Mr. Chairman. I agree with all the councilors who spoke. When this first came in front of us, I mean, I know some of the neighbors down there that live down there, what they had to put up with over the past 20, 30, 40 years down there is incredible. But the bus company has been closed. So it's not an issue of buses going in and out of there if they're going back with buses. I don't see it. But the attorney and, you know, I disagree with the council to my left saying that they're going to win this in court because it is more detrimental. If I live there, what do I want? I want to sleep at night. You know, if they were my customer, if I was a customer of theirs and I got in an accident, I'm going to say bring my car down, leave it outside that shop. And who knows what time that might be, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, with a tow truck backing up with a diesel engine going off and everything else. So to say it's not more detrimental, and that is a reason to stop something. If that's not more detrimental, because you don't stop a 24-hour operation when you're dropping cars off in an accident. So I don't see them winning this in court at all, and I will be opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Penta. Well, I think we really need to refocus on the burden here, as the legal burden, so to speak, the necessity. Go ahead, Councilor.
Councilor, through you, Mr. Chairman, Councilor Hassett raised the issue of parking. Just to note for the record, again, looking at the burden, which is substantially more detrimental, this particular facility has for decades had no greater than 3 off-street parking spaces. It now has almost 8 off-street parking spaces. Are required to have 11 by the zoning. It's a non-conforming structure, so it doesn't have to include zoning. So even on the legal basis, the burden would shift on that thing. It's a very difficult case, and I leave it to the will of the council.
Well, just to comment on again, the burden, substantially more detrimental to the character and the other considerations in the neighborhood. I think we need to look historically at the use of the building, which was essentially for buses going in, and most often starting from that place and being stored there at night. They'd be leaving in the morning, and they'd be back at 5 or 6 o'clock at night or whatever time at night, and they'd be stored there until the next morning. What of that use would this particular use be substantially more detrimental? And I tend to agree with the neighborhood as well as with the city councils that there is no certainty that only the 4 parking spaces would be used by the employees. In fact, I would think Mr. St. Ville would have a substantial interest in seeing that he has as many employees working on those vehicles as he possibly could. I think when the buses were there, they were there in a day when a lot of people walked to work and they didn't have vehicles to drive them to work, the bus drivers. And there's no, I don't believe it's necessarily so that the employees there used more parking spaces. And I think the other issue we have to face here is the fact that essentially that garage was used for a few hours in the morning and a few hours at night. The rest of the time it was a quiet use. This use, however, is going to be significantly of greater noise. And I know the suggestion is that there's state-of-the-art equipment. You can't smell the paint, you can't smell that. But it's very hard for me to believe that all of that noise and all of that odor and all of those chemicals could be adequately contained to assure that the very close neighbors here would not be in substantially more detrimental situation than they were when the buses were moving in and out of there a couple of hours on each end of the day. So at this point, in reaction to Councilor Zambuta's suggestion, we could, at this point, agree to extend this another 30 days. Well, I'm sorry, but you did suggest that we put this over, and we are at a time limit here, so that
No,
would be our only choice. I know you didn't specifically say that. I don't see that any other choice other than we're running up against the time limit to vote on this.
I have a
So-
motion to deny.
If I could finish for a moment? Thank you, and I'll entertain motions in a second. But in regard to that, however, I would, and I'm always in favor of potential compromise, but quite frankly, I don't see Mr. St. Ville deciding to turn this thing, what is a proposed auto body shop, into an art gallery. It's just not going to happen. He's in the auto body business, and that's what he wants to put in there, and that's what's proposed. So I would not think it would be particularly helpful to grant an extension at this point. So I will, Councilor Ganasso, entertain a motion. All right, Councilor Ganasso has moved the subcommittee to report this out unfavorably to the, certainly.
Before the roll call, I think we have to come up with, as you indicated, reasons why we will deny the application.
I don't think we do. I think the city council as a whole does, and I
Well,
think...
that's what I'm saying.
I think those, when this matter is taken up to city council meeting, I think each and every one of the city councils ought to express to the public and to the applicant why this is being denied based on substantially more detrimental standards. So I would entertain the motion again. The motion's on the table. All in favor? Subcommittee? I see all in favor. And so this will be reported on unfavorably. Unfortunately, Mr. Simeone, you may stick around for the meeting if there are any questions, perhaps. I frankly, it doesn't look good for you, but we'll see what happens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And by the way, this applies to both applications. Obviously, the application for the 148 license is moot if the special permit is denied, so.
That's correct.
Thank you. That being the last item on our agenda, I believe we have next appointment subcommittee at 5:30 and then city council at 6. Thank you.